So here we are, right? Here we are. We're in the off-season program. We're in the off-season program, right? We're not worried about this, right? We're not worried about this. We're not worried about this. There are so many steps you got to take before this happens. Notice I don't have a picture of last year. I don't have a picture of last year's mountain, because when you're climbing a mountain, right? When you're climbing a mountain, you are solely focused on where you are. You never look back, ever.
Welcome into Birds Huddle, presented by Toyota, official automotive partner of the NFL. This is an eagle-eye takeover. Dave Zangaro and Ruben Frank here. What do you think? You didn't get enough of me in the podcast?
I think that when you climb a mountain, you do kind of look at the peak. You're kind of like, all right, I got this far to go.
Do you peek at the peak, though?
I think you take a peek at the peak.
It's not bad. Nick is pretty good at that, though.
He is. He goes to enough Super Bowls to use that mountain analogy a lot.
He certainly does. Let's get into our three-point stance presented by Toyota. Number one, and we saw it there, Nick Sirianni, he's an elite motivator.
He really is. And honestly, when he started, I really didn't know if his style would work with NFL players. It's kind of a collegiate, almost high school approach, but it works. I mean, the proof is in all the winning that they've done, a couple Super Bowls, a bunch of wins. They don't lose many games. So, and obviously what happened last year, it works. He finds a way. I think it's because he's so authentic. He's so real, and the players buy in. And then when you keep winning like he does, then they really buy in. It works, and they want to be part of a winner, and they know it works. So I am a little surprised that his methodology works in the NFL level. You don't see a lot of guys who are that, rah-rah high school Harry type stuff. It works for him. I think Dan Campbell's another guy that it works for.
Yeah, I think it's very important that he is who he is. It's not manufactured. I've been really fascinated following him and kind of learning his methods, because he really does put a lot of thought into his messaging. He'll talk about, walking around his town when he has a moment, and he's always just thinking about a new anecdote or a new method to get his message across. I think he, at least from hearing him, he thinks about the message a lot more than the other coaches I've been around.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And he's got a story for every situation. He's got a metaphor for every situation. When he goes, and I think it's important to keep the messaging fresh, because if the guys hear the same thing over and over and over, they're going to stop listening. So you got to do. I think he understands that. He's got new little stories and new, when I was in Indy, this happened, and when I was in San Diego, this happened, and he keeps it fresh, and they keep listening and they keep winning.
Yeah, and he's talked about this before. It's like, how do I say the same thing in a different way? Because really the messages, they don't change that much. He wants them to kind of go about things in a certain way, but if he can bring up a story from a different sport or from a different coach that he heard, he does all that. And I think his players appreciate it, because those team meetings have to get boring after a while, but when you have a guy who's working on it constantly, trying to make it better, it has to help.
And I think when people think about what makes a great head coach, you start out with, player evaluation. You start with play calling with an offensive guy or a defensive guy. But this stuff is just as important. And he's not a great play caller. I think he's pretty good personnel evaluator, but we've seen him try to call plays. He's not good at it. But as far as motivating and leading and understanding the right thing to say at the right moment, puts goosebumps on my goosebumps.
He's pretty darn good at it. Number two, this year's climb to the top of that mountain might be a little more difficult.
Yeah, I think it will be. The schedule's challenging. When you win, you get a tough schedule. Tough to repeat. Who's the last NFC team to repeat? I guess it was the Cowboys, 92, 93. Since then, Denver repeated. Obviously, the Patriots and the Chiefs in the AFC. But I think before Denver, it was the Niners in the 80s. So, yeah, it's very tough to repeat. And they got a big bullseye on them. Everyone's picking them. They're going to be everyone's pick to get back and represent the NFC. It's hard to do just to kind of work up the motivation to get back and start at the bottom and work around. But it's also, look, they've had a lot of changes on defense, and that's another big thing to keep an eye on. So there's a lot of conspiring against them, the schedule, the defensive changes, and just the natural, look, to get past that notion of, hey, we're champions, we won this thing. maybe we can just kind of take it a little easy and win another one. It doesn't work that way. So there's a lot working against champions. That's why it's hard to do. I think there's only been 8 repeat winners, I think, in history. But they got a shot.
They do, and you kind of laid out some of the reasons it's going to be difficult, but you look at the roster, it's still one of the most talented rosters in the league. The coaching staff, you mentioned Nick Sirianni, he's a good motivator. On defense, you have Vic Fangio. So you have a lot of different pieces on defense, but the coordinator hasn't changed. We saw how he was able to develop with the help of his position coaches, all those young players last year. He has to do it again, but I think he can. And I think back to 2017, coming off of that Super Bowl. It's the only other experience we have in this town with a Super Bowl winner. I do think this team is better positioned than the 2018 team to repeat.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's more young talent, and that was an older team that. And look, they had a good year, and they did go to the playoffs, and they won a playoff game somehow. I'm not sure how, but they did win one. But yeah, that was a team that was trending downward, and I think Howie learned from that, and obviously he kept things young and fast this year. It's a much younger, faster team than 18 was. I mean, they tried to kind of let's just milk that 2017 roster for try to get another year out of them. It worked to an extent, but I think to make another run at it, you had to make changes, and they did.
You mentioned the youth on the roster. That brings us to number 3. New stars are going to emerge this season. So, Rube, give me one.
And Dave's a star at transitions, I just want to say. The segues are just brilliant.
I appreciate that. It always helps when you point them out. Give me one player you think is going to make a big leap this year.
Yeah, you talk about Vic and how good he is with young players. I'll go Keely Ringo, a guy that I'm really bullish on. I think he's got a chance to be a very good corner in this league. Played more as a rookie than he did last year. They had, obviously, Isaiah Rodgers came in. But he's got all the athleticism, speed, tremendous size. He's got those long arms, knock balls down. He's fast, he's feisty, he's a physical guy. And look, he's going to have to earn that CB2 outside job in camp, but I think he's going to do it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Keely Ringo looks like as a starting cornerback.
Yeah, me too. He'll be going against Adoree Jackson in training camp. Obviously, Darius Slay left in training or left before this season, and also Isaiah Rodgers is gone. So that spot is a big one. It's going to play like 85% of the snaps.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see if Cooper is playing outside in base, which you just don't see very much. But yeah, look, they want the younger guy to win the job. They want the draft pick to win the job, and they're not going to hand Keely anything. But I think you're going up against a guy who's 29, has been in the league a long time. Now he's gonna hold his own in camp because Adoree Jackson's played a lot of football and he's a smart guy. But I think Keely, unless he really messes this thing up, I think he'll be the starter.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Looking forward to watching Keely Ringo. But the one guy on defense I think I'm looking forward to watching more than anyone is Jalix Hunt because of just how far he came last year. A third-round pick out of Houston Christian, was inactive, a healthy scratch in week 1 down in Sao Paulo. And by the end of the season, he's on the field in the Super Bowl as a great player. I mean, he was getting constant pressure in that game on Patrick Mahomes along with the rest of the defensive line. But you look at where he was last year to this year, I mean, he's probably going to be a starter opposite Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I would think. I'll be shocked if he's not. And we've talked about this. Have you ever seen a player go from inactive in the opener to being a star in a Super Bowl? I mean, you just don't hear about that. And if he can improve, 25% at the rate he did last year, he's going to be a really good starting edge rusher in this league. I'm excited, too, about him. We couldn't both take the same guy, so.
We could. It wouldn't be good TV, though,
right
I guess. Maybe good for a podcast, not good for TV. It's time now for the Playbook presented by Supercuts. Our top 25 most important Eagles countdown continues with Tyler Steen at number 22. Ruben, I might disagree with him being on the list. Plus, 32 teams in 32 days focuses on the Patriots. Is there any way Milton Williams lives up to his huge contract as our Eagle Eye takeover of Birds Huddle continues?